Sorry for not really announcing this. I just kind of was sitting here working on some of the translations and coming to an interesting conclusion. So previously, I have done a piece on von Petzinger's work, excuse me, in proto-language types connected to Neanderthal cave art from approximately 50,000 years ago. In the symbols that are up that she studied, there's, I think, approximately 60, or 50, but I have 30 of them. Many of them are translatable. I understand most of them because they are not unlike Native American trail talk and the trail talk of Bigfoot. So, with that being stated, if we are considering the origins of this planet and how life may have come about, and the fact that we have several proto-humans before us, more ape-like looking people, Australopithecus, Neanderthals look a little more human, Homo erectus a little more human, but we don't know much about their linguistic capacities. We do understand that some of them communicated verbally. We know that potentially with Neanderthals because of the art, and now the linguistics connection to symbology, petroglyphs. What I find interesting is the correlation between some of these very archaic petroglyphs and other archaic languages. Pinyin Chinese is one of those. But first, before I say anything about that, I'm going to go through a little bit of past documented symbols. So one of the past documented symbols that I found on the ground in Bigfoot locations, symbol for Thunderbird, which also happens to be a symbol archaically for mountain, though it is slightly different, though potentially not, because of this stick here, or root. I think this was a root, if I remember correctly. So when you're looking at this, I know this is two different symbols. I understand this is Thunderbird, but I also know it means mountain. The interesting coincidence, though, is that the symbol is present in Neanderthal cave art. It is also present in Bigfoot ground glyphs. So that's an interesting correlation. The other thing that I find interesting in her work, not only do most of these symbols read out as some of the symbols that Bigfoot utilize, a lot of us already understand them from my previous work, but there are a couple of unique symbols, like this one, that actually are relevant to speaking, how you pronounce a word. This represents a diphthong, or an epiglottal stop, excuse me. An epiglottal stop is a sound. So you're pushing your throat closed and kind of shutting that airway where the epiglottal is in the back of your throat. So you can have a different sound. Now, keep that in mind. Let's go through some of these other symbols that I have found on the ground. Talent. This is also the same as ancient pinyin, or even ancient Japanese of the pre-Edo period. Symbol for how much. I don't know the original pronunciations for these because I was taught to read them in English. I can sound them out sometimes, but it's difficult. Now, if you notice, some of these are very distinctly laid out. They're very precise. The stick is over the top of the stick laying below at an adjacent angle, and then you've got one over. So these are intentional placements. Those can't be accidental. The symbol for fire is still the same as the symbol in the 10 stems of life, which is also Edo period Japanese. So this symbol remains the same for Neanderthal, potentially, although they haven't found that symbol yet with Neanderthals. But it does remain the same for more modern linguistics. A very ancient form to a more modern form, both meaning fire. Also, both symbols are based on the count of 10, how many fingers you have. Strong, that is another emblem that you will see repeatedly with Bigfoot, and you'll find various ways that how much is written. One person, or a person, man, individual. Found this in a Dogman location. This is von Petzinger's emblem. So, Neanderthals cave writing is the same as a local area where I know there are dogmen at. I find that very entertaining. Now again, we're going back to more linguistic stuff. Okay, so you got back over here to the Japanese. At a period, you have the symbol for flower, which is this one here. Also means east. I found this in a local area. This also means flower. So I found this emblem last year with the moss above it. The stick had been chosen for its shape, I believe. It was talking about no flowers, because this symbol across means this plant does not flower, at least not like a bloom. Interestingly enough, the symbol for no cross or not the same is also in von Petzinger's work with the Neanderthals. A lot of coincidences here. And then we get to this. So this is something that I found while out on a local expedition in the Cascades with Flash of Beauty and Toby Johnson in one of his research locations. This is a significant find, like this emblem in von Petzinger's work about an epiglottal stop. This, when translated, means a voiceless, retroflexive fricative. It is a Indo-Iranian or Indo-Iranian 16th century letter of the Pashto alphabet, but it also means an aspiration in linguistics. So it is referring to how to pronounce something, just like that symbol is referring to pronunciation. So if a parent is teaching a child how to correctly pronounce a word, they will give you a symbol and teach you what that symbol means. Now, if it's a word or a phrase like what can be spared and nothing to spare, no deal, can't do anything to help you. These are all in von Petzinger's work, but they're also present in almost every Bigfoot area you can find. So these references to enunciation, how to pronounce, and I have seen this laid out in sticks in several Bigfoot areas. I haven't taken a picture of one previously, though I see it numerous times because I couldn't figure out what it meant until I ran across von Petzinger's work. She clarified that for me, and it now laces together with the understanding that Neanderthal proto-language, it was also very similar to the proto-language of Bigfoot. There are a lot of correlations. A lot of symbols are the same. A lot of the iconography and representation is similar. You know, the dots to represent the Big Dipper or the constellation of Cancer, the crab. Symbol for fern as opposed to tree. Those are the same kind of symbols that I've seen Bigfoot use. However, I think that Bigfoot's trail talk is more reminiscent of this than what some of the linguistics is for Bigfoot. It looks like their linguistics has two levels. When you consider their trail talk, they interlace a lot of this symbology in their trail talk. But when you are looking at how they communicate with each other, they have a more advanced linguistics characteristic. They are more modern. Now, the oldest language that we have in the world that we can trace that's still spoken by a few people is Ainu Japanese. It's reported to be over 120,000, 135,000 years, something like that. A lot of these very archaic kana are very similar to the Ainu language. So the Ainu language has sounds that they build their kana and kanji out of. It is also the same for the more modern Pinyin Chinese, which only goes back about 5,000 years, when they first started creating lexicons of images to give it a definition like a dictionary to the different symbols. So the language is probably far older than the lexicon dictionaries. With that being said, some of the Dogman languages are incredibly pre-Edo period in their hiragana or katakana layout. They write top to bottom, and they use pre-Edo period sound forms for the language, unlike a lot of the other Bigfoot, which use more Pinyin or more Chinese. The thing I find interesting about that is when the Native American Linguistics Hand-Talking Conference was done, what was it, in 1930, by the American government, military in particular, there was a connection made between some Native American languages and ancient Chinese and Japanese. Now, if you take that all into account, Bigfoot has language, and it is chartable. It's translatable. Oh, and there are some outliers. Let me get into that for a second, too. Because along my way of trying to understand how to translate their language, what linguistics patterns I needed to look for, and which cultures I needed to study for linguistics, I came across a couple of unusual outliers. So let me turn my camera around again, and we will discuss those. One of the groups in this area, a little south of here, and I'm not quite sure if they are a Bigfoot or a Dogman. I'm not really positive. I've never seen one. I've only seen their communications, their foraging habits. Where I found the bird with the broken neck, that's their region. So they laid down two symbols in their area that I've not seen anywhere else in this valley. And it kind of threw a hammer in my understanding, because it's like, left field, Clyde, what the heck? So one of the symbols that they laid down is a symbol for ride, which is an Old Norse symbol, Idaho. And it is actually a Nordic symbol. Okay? That could have been, though, something that they learned from the Norsemen that settled here, because Norsemen have been visiting the east coast of America since the 700s. All right, so that could be a linguistic adoption, a rune that was brought into language because they didn't have a word, and this represented a word they didn't have, potentially. That's only a potential. The other thing I found very interesting was this symbol that I found in their same area, meaning way or road. And then there was one other. Do I have a set on it? Ah, dang it. I don't have the other kanji that I found in their area. So anyway, this one is almost Hebrew looking, if you don't know how to translate it. It turns out to be Zhao period Chinese calligraphy, but laid out in sticks. It looks very blocky and can be mistaken for Hebrew. All right. And then the last oddball variation. Oh, and a very definite find of a Zhao period piece. Now, this was found in the Shaman Dogman's area. It's a surname, and it also is mo for sound. So the linguistics in this area is both Chinese and Japanese, which also fits a linguistic pattern of the military talks about Native American linguistics and how our language is related to Asiatic languages in some tribes, but not all. So there are a couple of unusual linguistic outliers in this area. I don't typically go over symbols I haven't found more than once. So for me to talk about any of these means I found them at least twice. I always find the first one, then I try to look for another confirmation pattern with the same, kana, kanji, glyph, whatever you want to call it, to confirm that it is a linguistic and not a chance pattern on the ground. And I try to look in different regions, miles apart, because the chances of the same pattern occurring in two separate locations separated by miles is 1 in a million. If it occurs, then it's got to be something doing the action. So with that in mind, and there is, in this local neighborhood, there's also an individual that writes in ancient Hindi, as far as I can tell, and they only do it in the spring, so I'm assuming it has something to do with religion. I gotta go check the trails in this neighborhood, and if I can find that little kanji, I don't even know what to call. I gotta do some research on Hindu language. I don't know enough about it to know what to call it when it's written out on, it's written like a line with little squigglies. This individual lays out a straight stick and then bends grass and places sticks to make the emblems. And I've seen the emblem multiple times in 2 different locations here and 1 location further south of here, about 15 miles. Only 2 places I've ever seen the same symbol. So it might be the same individual, or it might be relevant to the Skookum, because it's the Skookum in this area that have given me Urdu words, Hindu words that are ancient but are translatable and findable. You can confirm them. So I think now that my current channel looks like it's going to take forever to fix, I just got another email. They put a button in for me to try to utilize to bypass the error. It takes me to the same error. Somehow there is a page locked and I can't get into it. So I don't know how many months it might take to fix my current channel, which we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I'm got to work on offloading all of the kana and kanji from my phone before I can update my phone. See if I can fix it from my end. Maybe it's the latest update, and that this phone is a 4G and their system is 5G. That might be causing the issue. But in the meantime, I'm going to be talking more about language and the potential for communication, because now that I've looked into von Petzinger's work and some of the linguistic correlations between the petroglyphs and petroglyphs that I've seen, pictographs, because petroglyphs and pictographs are two different things. Uh, One is relief carving, so the image stands out away from the rock, and the other is chip designs or patterns that are chipped out of the face of the rock to leave emblems or symbols. And then you've also got what is called shadowed pictographing, where there would be smoke, and they would chip in the smoke. A lot of the southwestern tribes would chip in the smoke of the caves where they had been building fires. They just moved the fire when they wanted to make new designs, you just move over. It was a way also to erase any tallies. Like if you had a debt trade or something with somebody and you chipped it into your fireplace chimney, uh, you only had to re-chip it a couple times till the debt was paid, and then you just let the smoke black it out. You could chip something else in the area. And that's something that if modern science understood that, they would maybe do some scanning of those walls and see previous chipping that has been blackened over. But they aren't aware of that nuance. Speaking of nuance, if you're seriously trying to research something, anything, you have to find some sort of distinguishable pattern that is repeatable, that is relevant, that is trackable, traceable, and documentable in order for it to be scientifically or theoretically provable. That is why I am shifting away from what I've done previously. There are 1,000+ videos up of behaviors, patterns of living, and I will continue to post in that genre, but not to the degree I had been. And the reason is because of the weird ass negative bullshit response out of other researchers. I'm not a fucking researcher. I don't need to be a goddamn researcher. I was taught this fucking shit, which means it's just part of my understanding. If I am a researcher at all, it is because I have decided to do things like create a tracker's manual that has 4,000 pictures in it of how to track these things. At this point, I have hundreds of pictures of their linguistic kana and kanji and their language patterns. I have dozens of pictures of different freaking cryptids. I'm going to be getting clearer pictures of those when I get my new phone updated and dealt with. But the flack. I try not to be an egotistical, self-indulgent individual when it comes to speaking about this topic. It's not my place to do so. But when I watch other researchers do some of the bizarre shit that they do and speak in the ways that they do, it makes me think that they're not so much out there trying to do earnest research, but to continue a form of prattling. Oh, prattling. Prattling is speaking without relevance. Uh, Gaslighting, that's a way of saying prattling. Or the inability to do the job. So you go to the hypothetical. Oh, they come through portals. They're space aliens. There is no lore on the planet that says that about Bigfoot. There are things on this planet that indicate there are other cryptids, though. Ant people, um, lizard people, grasshopper people, mantis people, little grays. There are lots of encounters that have been depicted on cave walls with things in spacesuits. To me, that looks more like a gray alien representation and is separate from things like Neanderthals or proto-humans. I'm not interested in buying a hypothetical theorem that is potentially not even proofable that there was some sort of alien creation of this planet. I just don't buy it. You're going to have to prove it to me, and you're going to have to do a goddamn good job of it. Because that is way too far out of the fucking limb for my reality. So if we're going to look at these things as being a proto-human, an archaic species of people, because I don't think they're animals. Animals don't write. And with that being said, I'm not going to entertain the idea ever again that a cryptid that walks upright, speaks, and writes in cuneiform on the ground, or in any form of linguistic pattern on the ground, laid out in sticks or otherwise, is just a fucking animal. Throw that in the goddamn round basket, along with the spaceship and the portal crap, because that's just tech companies giving funding to people through secondary agencies and saying, hey, this is what you want to say. All right, Hollywood, fuck off. Because that's all that really is. If you're earnestly trying to research these things, making a linguistic connection to something that is relevant is probably more likely and probably more achievable than even freaking getting a DNA sample that anybody isn't going to argue over. Regardless. The next year, I'm taking a break from my standard thing. Part of it's because of the goddamn gas prices. I'm sorry, guys, but I'm paying 5.5 fucking, almost. It's 4.5. I don't want to pay 5.5. I'll fucking walk to work. Way too much gas money. So my field work is going to go on the back burner, with the exception of very specific areas I want to deal with, and that will probably be when I'm visiting family and I happen to be in a location that I haven't documented yet, and I will do some documentation for you guys, and we'll go from there. Sorry for all the swearing tonight. I'm just fed up with the bullshit, and I think it's inappropriate. Over the years of me trying to post my information on various mediums, I've tried multiple times through Facebook. I've had my Facebook account hacked a couple of times. I've had my phone hacked. I had my very first. Oh, and I've had my ID stolen. Uh, so if you got anything that you think is my fucking background, it's probably a bunch of bullshit, and you probably should brown basket that crap, because it's probably from when I had my fucking ID ripped off. I now have some software to deal with that, and I have a tax agency behind me to block that bullshit out of my fucking scenario now. So, and by the way, buying people's personal information off the black web is probably fucking illegal and you shouldn't be doing it. With that being said, I've also lost a previous YouTube channel. It looks like this one's now been probably done the same way. And the reason I think that this channel has probably been I've probably been screwed out of this channel by somebody else, because I lost a phone last year right after I started this channel. The phone I currently work on, it was a secondary phone that I had to use to get into my channel and continue to post. So whoever has that phone likely kept it paid up, and now has intruded upon my channel. So, that makes round 5 with tech failing to keep my shit going. Another symbol that I want to note between von Petzinger's work and the iconography of Bigfoot is the hashtag symbol. I know the symbol as pigpole. So, let me turn this around. In von Petzinger's work, there is also this symbol of the little hashtag mark. In cave art 50,000 years ago in France, I think that was found in the Levat Cave of France, in the corridor area, Neanderthal cave wall writing. Well, that's also the symbol for pigpole, meaning punishment for criminal. Pigpole is what we put the Gugway on that attacked Chen. So, if you're looking at von Petzinger's work, you have social law structure, you have the representation of marriage, you have the representation of identity as a person or a human being, a man, woman, whatever. Circle of life, you come together, you have the representation of either Thunderbird or the mountain you have. A symbol that you recognize is I don't have anything to spare this time of famine. What you can spare you have, also symbols of astronomical constellations. You have a representation of number, herd, or farming. You have a hoof print, a monkey paw, most likely main food sources. This eye shape usually represents one day or one cycle of something. This can be a directional marker, and it can also mean teepee. You have human hand and you have a non-human hand with the wrist cut, shown a difference. You have the same symbol for don't go here, no pass. Same as Bigfoot symbol. You have the symbol for sakana, fish. These symbols are the same. You have the symbol for living room. You have the spiral of life. You have a epiglottal stop. You have sing praise. You have fishing hook. All the same stuff. Rapid river. Rapid river. Y symbol. You see the Y symbol in Bigfoot's area all the freaking time. What is it? The freaking constellation orientation that's going on right now. The alignment. That's your freaking Y symbol. You have the symbol for stream. You have the symbol for forward direction. It's all the same stuff. So, now that we've gotten past the linguistics issue, whereas the Neanderthals were incredibly proto, that is part of the trail talk, currently, of a slightly more advanced communication form by Bigfoot. That being said, they are neither Neanderthal nor are they modern human. However, linguistically, they fit somewhere in between in proto-human. So if I were a researcher, that is where I would start, with the linguistics. And the fact that we can track some of their stuff into so many different languages. Alright, so anyway, I've said my piece. Let's get on to some questions. See what you guys think about this, what you think about what I want to do. Okay. Angel, I came across this randomly in my feed. It looks fascinating. I have Scott. Wow, thank you so much. And yeah, I'm going to try to keep this channel afloat. Hey, Phil, welcome. I'm so glad to see you. Beezer, hi. Oh, I'm so glad that you find this interesting, Angel. It's just, I'm getting so tired of people playing these games, you know. I just watched a piece on a holy site that I was taken to as a teen when we first moved to this valley. It was up in the Santiam Pass area. It's an old petroglyph site that was sacred to the Malala tribe. And it's considered the caves of their ancestors, and it was considered the very first place they lived here. It's a reverence point. When my mom and I went up, we offered tobacco. We left tobacco for the site because any origin point that you go into, any holy site that you go into, any place where there are petroglyphs, pictographs, anything like that, cave paintings, you have to understand. Whereas they are studied and preserved in Europe and looked at treasures that give viable input to the history of humankind, the petroglyphs, pictographs, and writings here in the United States are completely disregarded for the most part. So the only reverence they really have is the respect that you actually give them and the time that you take to do research on the area before you go there. So you can speak eloquently about what's in front of you. If you don't have the wherewithal to do that, please don't act like a teenager. Please have some respect. That location was hereditarily used for generations to commemorate coming of age, to commemorate festivals, to hold sacred ceremonies, rites of passage, etc. Any individual going in there and just acting like a looky-loo tourist is disrespectful. At least have the fortitude to do a little research. Go talk to the local tribal people. If you can't go talk to them, go to the local university. Talk to the, representative uh, indigenous people through the college system. They have a lot of information on these sites. And if they don't, they know usually some elder in the area that is willing to educate any person with questions. Go to any of your Native American student councils and ask them for direction. They usually have answers for you. So if you're going to go to a Native American historic site where there are petroglyphs or carvings, please give a little insight of the area. Pay a little respect to it and know that it's not preserved any other way than by your words and anyone who goes there to do speculative research. Because there are no archaeologists or anthropologists or linguists that want to even touch what's here in America. One, they hold too close to the theory that Native Americans only came here 12,000 years ago from the land bridge. Bullshit. Pictographs come from 38 to 40,000 years ago, and if they're here in America just like they are in Europe, then they came about at the same effing time. If we have continued to use them, then we didn't have need to change up. So keep that in mind. When you go to these sites, they're, with the exception of the Army Corps of Engineers, not even the freaking Parks District steps up. Army Corps of Engineers are the only people that have consistently preserved sites that are significant to Native American past. When those sites are not on tribal land, the Army Corps of Engineers has always stepped up and put those sites under their protection. What that means is if you take anything from those areas, you're going to get hunted down. If you graffiti those areas, they're going to charge you. But that's the only protections those sites have. Nobody researches them. Nobody cares. We need to bring awareness to that because if Native Americans have been here before the Clovis people, which now they are discovering, we've been here for at least, 23,000 years? And if you look at it genetically, now they're looking at genetic ghosts that go back 170,000 years. And that's still not brushing how old the Native American population is here in America. My people, my family, when we went renegade and left our Plains Indian family behind, we came to the West Coast, and the reason is we understood that our origin stories came from the Cascade Mountain Range. This range here, this region here, there are chunks of land in this region of Oregon that are still top land that is incredibly ancient. There are still locations where you can go and see bedrock from Pangea and walk on it. Look at it and look at the prints in it. So if our history goes back further than 12,000 years, which it obviously does, we can take that theory and throw it away for now. We don't need it anymore. We're past it. So let's look at what's here. Let's look at what's available. When you go and you're looking at petroglyphs and you're looking at cave art, document everything that you can. Show every angle that you can. Even if you don't know what the symbol is, point it out. Somebody does. Somebody can speak up. Somebody can make a comment. Some Native American might know the symbol. Some linguist might know the symbol. Some archaeologist, etc., might know the symbol. It's the only way we're going to preserve it because nobody studies them. So please, when you go to sites like that, if you can document, please document. Do an earnest attempt. Don't look at it and go, oh, that's a pretty picture on the wall. I don't know what it means. I don't know what it means necessarily, but I'm going to give you as many angles of that imagery as I can. I'm going to show what's around it. I'm going to show as much of it as I can, whether I understand it or not, because somebody else will understand it. Okay. Synthetic. Greetings from Central Florida. Hey, Synthetic, welcome. Angel. I am in Maldaria Beach myself. Greetings. Oh, cool. Yep, North Central Canada for Phil. Winter Wonderland. Yep, no kidding. You're still under a couple of feet of snow up there. Anyone in chat? No. Oh, Awisa. I use my middle name. Because my native grandmother, well, great, 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 great 5 generations back grandmother, who started preserving our native lore about Bigfoot, their language and their traditions, their cultural history, that sort of thing. That's been carried down in my family for 5 generations, and I'm still trying to preserve it and continue it on. And because I do not have an heir to pass this knowledge on to, I have no child to teach, I have decided to publicly give this knowledge away so that it can be preserved. Part of it is the linguistics, and my passion has been the study of their language, because it's something that's been of a personal interest to me because of my interactions with Bigfoot on our properties when I was a child. She wrote in sticks, and that always fascinated me. And then being taught by my cryptid uncle, a friend of my father who knew the language and wrote down all of the different sounds for it. Now, when you talk about kanji and kana and that sort of thing, in the Asiatic languages, there are something like 86,000 kanji. Now, kanji is a complete thought. Let me turn the camera around here real quick again. This would be considered a kanji because it creates a complete thought. Living only a short time is what this kanji means. So someone passed as a baby. But each one of these elements, be it the strong emblem with the X symbol and the bar above and bar below, they all have separate sounds, which are the building blocks to the concept. Now, it's those separate sounds that I was taught. And I know about 140 some odd thousand of those sounds. And I'm still trying to figure out how many of them can be translated through these different kana and kanji that I find that Bigfoot utilized to communicate with, and the different variations of the languages that they might be linked to. Because it looks like some of these linguistic patterns venture off into not just Asiatic languages, but also into Nordic languages, into the Peshat, Iranian, ancient Pakistani languages. I've even gotten into some African emblems that I found here. So it's their proto-language is incredibly interlaced with potentially different cultures, which means some of these cryptids probably have come from different cultures in the past and still use some of those language types. Oh, yeah, by all means, take as many notes as you want. I'm going to try to offload my phone, like I said. I've got about another 80 or so, somewhere between 80 and 120 other kana and kanji that I still need to translate, get off my phone, post to this page, to this YouTube channel before I X this phone out. That's going to be probably the next couple of weeks. I'm sorry, guys. It's going to take me a while to offload those all and get them up and translated. Oh yeah, no problem. I'm just so fed up with all of the gaslighting that's going on in this field and the perpetual I can't explain it, so they come from a spaceship, they step out of portal scenario. No, and anybody who thinks that they're just an animal, I don't buy that either. You know, native indigenous people around the world uh, use hunting tactics that lure an animal in. Like, for instance, you can even do this with birds. There is, and I'm going to have to, I might do a live with this flipping bird in the yard. There are a lot of hummingbirds up on this hillside, and hummingbirds come into this yard all the time. There is one blue jay, though, in this area that is incredibly predatory to the hummingbirds. And he's already taken out at least 2 nests full of babies, because I've seen him with the little black chicks in its beak. Now this flippin' bird is taken up using a hummingbird's territory chirp to draw in a male so he can hunt him. And he's been sitting, he'll come in and he'll sit in the hummingbird's perch and then make a territory call to try to lure him in. Birds do it. Ancient humans do it. Indigenous people do it. We have always used animal calls. Even hunters know this. You make a duck call a duck. You make a moose call a moose. You make an elk call an elk. You make a deer call a deer. You make a grouse call a grouse. It's also you can hunt, so you can get dinner. How is it that all of these researchers in the field think that because Bigfoot make animal sounds that they're an animal? If they make animal-like sounds, calls from other animals that they are mimicking. Well, yes, they are mimicking, so that they can call dinner to their side and get it easier. It's a hunting tactic. That is nothing that a bear is going to do. That is nothing that a cougar is going to do, or a wolf, or any other normal predator out there except us. So, intellectually, they're not animals. And I don't think they're technologically advanced. They use too many stone tools and wooden tools. And the structures that they build are too much like archaic humans. If anything, they're a cousin species or another branch of the family that we know nothing about, because there's also plenty of indigenous cultures around the world that talk about crossbreeding with these things in various countries, not just here. There are stories from the Nordic lands of trolls mating with women and producing offspring. There are stories here amongst the native people of Bigfoot, hairy men, abducting women, mating with them, and they come back pregnant. That again puts them in our family tree. So I'm no longer going to entertain anything other than they are some sort of an adjacent species to us. Phil, do you know why they stick large trees upside down in the ground with the roots up top? They seem to be perfectly straight. Yeah, plums. I know what my Native American friends from Alaska say, because I've never seen it personally. I have only seen one incident of it, but it wasn't buried in the ground. It was about a 10-foot long section of a tree that was turned upside down with the roots in the air. And it was at a coming of age ceremony site. So, the Native Americans up in Alaska claim that the Bigfoots sit in the tops of those root balls and pray to the northern lights by singing at the lights to change the pattern of the lights. That's what they claim. However, when I found the section of trunk here with the root ball skyward and noting that the behavior was in a site where a recent rite of passage had been accomplished, it may have some sort of religious significance towards a male's rite of passage in a particular type of cultural society or order. It might be specific to a religious practice of a particular, like deer society, bear society, something like that. Because I never expected to see it upside down, an upside down tree here, planted in the ground or not, because I've never seen one here in the Northwest. I've been told about them being up north. So those are the two concepts that I'm aware of. My little personal theory because of what I noticed, and that was in the area where the Bigfoot shaman does all of the teaching young ones how to knap tools, grind, paint. Uh, he's known as a well-known medicine person in the area. He's some sort of a officiating person because multiple different groups lay down his particular symbol and they send their children to him. Another potential, let me turn this around one more time. Another potential meaning for this symbol, if the symbol had a longer central stick, is also the symbol for medicine man, because his symbol is this, but just with a longer stick on it. So if it isn't nothing we can spare, it may also mean medicine person of some type or particular order. So theoretics, conjecture, until there are more proofs and supportive information with some of these symbols, it might be difficult to understand the association in their culture. That's the other thing. You have to understand we are looking from the outside into a culture we know nothing about, other than what can be compared to other archaic proto-human cultures or current indigenous cultures that have a very ancient way about them. And that's unilaterally around the world. Not just Native Americans, but any indigenous culture around the world is going to have a more associative understanding of some of the symbols and some of the behaviors that Bigfoot exemplifies, because they'll be able to understand it as tribal behavior and cultural behavior that we don't understand currently because we're domesticated modern humans living in cities. Right. Yeah, and a student of life is the best place to be because, well, as we know, Phil, there are plenty of experiences out there, and life always has something to teach us. Yes, and there are quite a few different types of cryptids out there. Nope, not just animals. And I know Phil has had some very enlightening experiences where he lives, and he lives around them constantly. He has to deal with them in his daily life. Yeah, oh my God, $7 a gallon up there now? Oh my God. $10 on Vancouver Island. Oh, please stop the stupidity. All right. Synthetic. I'm no authority on the matter, but I think the purpose of uprooting trees and stabling them back into the ground upside down is their way of saying there's the boundary. You do not cross the boundary. Well, and it could also be if it's like a society marker. That might very definitely be the case, synthetic, because it might be saying that, hey, this is where our society meets, this is our religious order, this is our holy land, don't come here. A very archaic way of putting up a Stonehenge or a pyramid without building anything out of stone, just doing it in wood. It's marking it, it's delineating it as a separate, maybe a sacred spot. That could be very true. Yeah. These are out in Siskiyou, going towards the river. There are several petroglyphs on rocks that you can see in summertime Sasquatch. Oh yeah. Uh, there are a lot of, actually, here on the west coast, believe it or not, there are quite a few from like Washington, southern Canada, all the way down the west coast, down into the southern regions, the southwest, New Mexico, Arizona, over into like Utah, Nevada. There are also petroglyphs all through this region and into Texas. And the reason is because that particular swath of land was never really under ice during the Ice Age. We had a time where, like Utah, Ohio, that region was like an inlet sea. That's why you find like petrified dolphin and whale skeletons and stuff in those regions. And a lot of petrified, like here, this valley was actually an inlet sea for thousands of years. It only drained about 1,500 years ago, roughly. So we were at one time under 25 feet of salt water here. So in those regions, you'll find a lot of petrified sea life. Uh, but where we lived on the land between the Pacific and the Inlet Sea, mind you, that Inlet Sea that's now Ohio, Utah region, all that inner central fertile ground where we have our farmland. You'll also find a lot of plesiosaur there because that was their breeding ground in ancient times before they were destroyed. Uh, and dolphins also were very prevalent in that area. And recently, we had a migratory dolphin that decided to go all the way to an inlet ocean here, or not inlet ocean, but an inlet lake in the old inlet ocean area. And he's still swimming around in the the lake. I can't remember which lake he entered, but it's a pretty good sized one. I think it's in Ohio or Utah, if I remember right. Anyway, that region's been on my mind a lot recently because of the type of what you find on either side of that region. You find language and linguistics in representation in the eastern shoreboard area, seaboard area. You find it up in the Great Lakes area. You find it on the west coast and in the southwest, and you find it along the Mississippi and in through the more ancient mountains, the Ozarks, the Smokies, the Appalachians. You'll find a lot of this sort of imagery going on, which kind of tells me, those areas have been habitually occupied for generations by various indigenous people. All gamies, thank you for subscribing. And, Uggy, you're from Arizona. Wow, so you probably get to see all that beautiful pictographic languages, paintings, and God, I'd always loved the idea of going down to the Southwest to try to see that sort of thing. My grandmother always talked about how beautiful those regions were and the different kinds of things you could see in the caves. I've just never been able to get there. I've always pretty much just been on the West Coast. Again, I want to listen so bad, but I have to work in a few hours. I'll look for you again tonight. Have a good morning. Aggie, well, hopefully you'll be able to catch me on Sunday, because I'm going to try to do some more work on this sort of thing and do something on Sunday. Hollis, I've seen the cross branch style Bigfoot style nest that a British couple film in a park in the UK. They're all over. Oh yeah. And when you start looking into like ancient cultures, like you look into how the Ainu people in Japan lived before they started building modern homes. You start looking into how the Southwest Native Americans lived, and even some of the little teepee structures that you find in Australia. You'll find a pyramid looking structure. It's just a teepee structure, it's the stick thingy. Hardly anything on top. Maybe a little foliage, but you'll have a bunch of brush stacked around the bottom edge. My grandmother called that a summer tent. It keeps the bugs and stuff off of you, and the critters from crawling in from the sides. They'll get stuck in the brambles and stuff around the edge. You've got an open sky above, and if it rains, you just add foliage over the top to keep you from getting wet. You can build a little fire in the front of it. It keeps you warm. It cycles the air inside. It's a very rudimentary form of structure. Ancient indigenous people around the world have used that same little pyramid-style teepee structure with the same type of little foliage, break line around it, and then covering if it gets rainy. So for Bigfoot to utilize something like that, again, is very similar to what other indigenous ancient proto-humans and even us. I'm having bird calls at the wrong hour out there. So yeah, um, those sorts of structures are unilaterally used by ancient indigenous cultures and proto-humans. That's something that we need to think about. Because in light of that, it's very suggestive that we shouldn't be hunting them. We really need to start thinking about this in a more reasonable manner and start approaching this topic in general in less of a reflexive manner and more in a inclusionary manner. A reflexive meaning stop acting in fear. Don't let that intrude upon your understanding or your study of them. And I know that's a hard one for anybody who has had encounters with them because they are absolutely fucking huge. And it's alarming and disturbing when you realize you're not the top creature on the planet. And one of these things is sitting next to you or makes itself known to you visually, or it throws something at you and you realize, I am toast if it wants to get rid of me. But, the same could be said for Neanderthals. They were 4 times stronger than modern man. They were far more like a primate in their strength than we are. So keep in mind, we have no idea what our proto-human ancestors may have been like. We know what the modern variations that we can find bones of looked like, potentially, but they were all different. They had different muscle structure, they had different body structure. A lot of the Neanderthals, not just having a brow ridge that was defined, they also had a barrel chest. They had larger ligament and muscle attachments on their bones. So they had a very different power structure. Their body structure was much more powerful than ours. So keep in mind that maybe we're just looking at some sort of archaic human. Peculiar as that sounds, it might be the case. And who knows how many other variations of these things have already gone extinct and don't exist anymore. We don't know. We don't have enough fossil record to know. Although I think with modern genetics and our advancements at looking at our own genetics is going to help us sift this out better. Maybe give some more flesh to the bones that we have as a skeleton here for humanity. Because I don't think we're so much a family tree as a family bush. We've got a heck of a lot more offshoots than we realized. Yeah, I think I got company out there. Because I just heard what sounded like a falcon call and then another little squeaky call that shouldn't be a night bird of any kind in this area. We have owls in this area and falcons don't come out at night. And I don't hear a jay calling at night, and that was the second call was a jay call. So, looks like we got visitors again. Not uncommon in this hillside. Really? Hollis, that is awesome. You heard of sightings of some being seen using fire. Well, I know that Bigfoot use fire. It's not often that they use it. They don't use it to cook their food daily, for instance, but they do use it for ceremonial purposes. And I know that they do use it to cook game occasionally, but that's usually for like marriage, rite of passage, or birth, a new person in their culture. So it's ceremonial purposes. Otherwise, they'll leave it in representation, but there won't be any evidence of the fire except maybe burnt pieces of wood or charcoal that might be strewn in an area where they'll put up a fake hearth. Because they understand, I think, that smoke from a fire would bring too much attention. I think that's why it is now used as ceremonial, because I think they may have used fire more when there weren't so many eyes on the woods and so many people doing fire watch. Now you see a stream of smoke in the woods, you might get it called in as a potential forest fire, so it's going to expose their location. That would be a reason for them to use it less frequently if you're thinking about them as being more human in their thinking. Okay, ABC, Phil. ABC always be calm. Yep. Easier said than done. Yeah, I know. There've been a few times I've not been able to remain calm, and I'm pretty good at it. I find the longer they are present near, the harder it is to remain calm. That's part of the reason last year, Phil, that when I found that mixed group that liked to sit along the stream edge, I went and sat down in that stream for 4 to 6 hours a day. So that they could get to know me and I could get over any kind of concern about moving around them. Because if they're familiar with me and at ease, then I don't have to be as on guard. I don't have to let my reactions outmatch my wits. But it does take time. And there are always those, I mean, I walked into an area last year where that time anomaly was, and I went through panic because of the track I saw from the Ryogen. Scary critter. I'm probably never going to get over that. I'm probably always going to have a little bit of a panic moment because of the interaction, the very first interaction I had when I was a child. You know, looking at something I could not understand what I was looking at. My mom had already told me, don't go mess with that structure. Don't look at what's there. You're not going to like it. My dumb little 8-year-old ass decided to go not pay attention to what mom said and went and looked at the Ryogen. Scared me half to death. Though I try to hang on to that memory, my brain just, made it disappear. And I didn't have that rush of memory back until I saw the front, its front feet, the way it moves. It's got those crab claw hooks. Seeing those crab claw knuckles brought that memory back, and that's why I kind of panicked in the middle of that filming. I couldn't get the word out. I'm not gonna say it. I was trying to not go into full pillbox mode and not be able to talk at all. So yeah, sometimes you're always going to have that reflexive no matter what, and that's just because of past interaction, something that really caught you off guard. Okay, synthetic gets a display of force. It is also arguably incredibly hostile. I am not quite sure. Let me think. Let me go up, because if you think about that. Oh, visually. Yeah, okay. Ah, I missed one of your posts. That's why I didn't understand that other statement. Synthetic. Sorry. Yes, I've heard a few stories recounting to me where stabbing a tree into the ground was something akin to a final warning, where some tension had built up and the upside down tree was the conclusion. I can believe that, and the reason is, if it is a sacred spot, if it is a worship location and it is considered a holy spot, if you're not part of that organization, that group, that society, that order, whatever, they're going to not want you to be there because it's considered sacred to them, and you're an outsider and you're not a member of the group. You're not a member of the society. So they'll try to drive you out, keep their land pure for their religious purposes. So that, yeah, I could see that it being seen or understood as a hostile thing. It might be a hostile thing in some instances. Phil, 3 or 4 years ago, wild deer hunting, there were 12 Bigfoot individuals within the spruce, western hemlock, about 120 feet from me. That's a lot of individuals to be that close to you. That had to have been startling. Their heads were visible, but not their bodies. I could not hear any audible or mind speak. Yeah, they might have been a family group moving. Could have been a group coming to see what you're up to, too, because there have been one of the incidences that was relayed to me by John Bendernagel when I spoke to him and met with him several times. There was an encounter with a group of hunters. There had been about 10 hunters that had gone out back east somewhere to do, you know, fall hunting. They were deer hunting. And the area that they went into happened to be occupied by a Bigfoot. And approximately 80 Bigfoot stepped out of the woods and looked at them. Some of them had stone tools with them. Some had clothing on. They were wearing loincloths, some of them, and some of them had shoes on. And basically, the hunters were more or less gestured out of the area. You know, the big leader of the group pointed at them, pointed at the road, like, get the hell out of here. So they didn't like the hunters in the area, and they made their presence known and let them know how many there were and that the hunters needed to move along. So when you are dealing with tribal people living in the wild, it would stand to reason that they have hunting grounds. And I've noticed that the marking system that Bigfoot utilizes for foraging territories is very similar to ancient indigenous markers for marking hunting and foraging grounds. If you go into those areas, yeah, you might have an indigenous reaction to you poaching, because that's how they see it. That's how our tribe saw it. Me as Hunk Papa, if I didn't have an agreement, even with my Lakota brother, of what territory I could hunt in, I couldn't go into Lakota territory and hunt his game land. I had to stay on my own. And that's something I think that causes issue with hunters and Bigfoot cryptids. I don't think that we're taught anymore that there might be pre-existing hunting grounds out there that we have to be aware of, and that indigenous proto-humans might guard. Because, well, we look at these things as a fictitious anomaly and they're not really a creature among us. Once we accept the fact that they are a creature among us and we realize that they are potentially an indigenous population of people, then it would stand to reason that they would have marked foraging and hunting territories. If you knew how to read the markers like a Native American, you wouldn't cross the boundary and you wouldn't have the issue. If you don't know how to read the marker and you don't know to stay out of their foraging area or the hunting grounds, you go in there and hunt. If they take offense to it, you might end up in two pieces hung in a tree. As a warning to your buddies not to hunt there. So I don't think that Bigfoot are intentionally going around ripping people in half, but I do think that it is possible they would find an intruder so offensive that they would do that. And depending on their culture, it might just go with the territory. Some of them are not friendly towards us. And that's the other thing that people need to understand. When you're going out and you're doing research, you're not always, even if you're hunting, even if you're hiking, whatever you're doing in the woods, you are not always going to run into a friendly cryptid. You know, you might run across a crawler or a gugway or some other cryptid like a sun-faced person that likes people for dinner. And I don't mean as a guest. That being said, you're dealing with indigenous people. You're dealing with indigenous populations. You're not dealing with an animal. And not all of them are going to act the same or interact the same. They are going to have their cultural differences and their preferences. That's why it's important, like baboons. You don't look a baboon in the eye. If you look a baboon in the eye, the baboon believes that you are challenging them, and they will pummel you into the ground. Ishka. The people that my mother did her turnout with look like baboons, and they have the same behavior. You look them in the eyes. Fierce Nan, what we understood natively, we called them fierce Nin, will pummel you. That's why my mother's turnout ended at 6 months. One of the juveniles and her got into a tug fest over something that they both wanted, and she looked him in the eyes and he beat her half to death. That's why her turnout ended. So keep in mind, though Ishka used language, and they do have proto-language, and they make woven shoes out of grass, some of their behavior characteristics are still very primate-like. So when our culture, my Native American culture, says, don't look that one in the face, you keep your eyes down. And the reason is you don't want to make the mistake and get attacked. When I was in the cave system with the individual that I was looking at the shoes of, the Ishka, I made the mistake of touching something that was his, which drew him into the end of the cave. And when I was stupid and I looked him in the eye, he tried to push me out of the cave. Thankfully, I knew how to rock climb. So keep in mind that, yeah, they are intelligent. However, some of them are probably still very archaic in their behaviors. And potentially, the Ishka, they might be a type of ancient, gigantic baboon. Because we do have one in the fossil record. And it's about the right size. They were a baboon approximately 5 to 6 feet in height. That sounds very much like the same height as the Ishka. They were very flat-faced. They were known to take care of their children. They were known to have a very close social family grouping. They were known to be tool users. Sounds an awful lot like the Ishka. Funny thing is there are accounts in Damoclides, I think. He was a general of ancient Greece. And he talked about playing with a primate-like creature in his personal memoirs, which I find very interesting, because it's potentially an account of a creature very similar to the Ishka or maybe the ancient baboon. But for it to be on the Iberian Peninsula is very interesting. The other thing that was interesting about it is he claimed that they wove shoes out of grass, the same as the Ishka here. That really makes me wonder. Okay. Oh, their heads were visible on their bodies. Yeah, that I've seen it. I've seen that sort of behavior out of Bigfoot. They'll stand in the bush line and just you'll see their head and shoulders, and the rest of their bodies behind a bush. I see that when they're observing you. They do that a lot. I think they were having a parlay of sorts. It allowed me to see, but not here. Yeah, that's possible, Phil. Oh, all right, doggo. Hang on. Sean's back in the room. Come on. get the rest of these questions and statements. Okay, conversation between villains and okay, it's really the reason I asked because I've heard him talk about ABC. All right, baby, come here. Let me get all my notes out of the way. Come on up here, honey bunny. Come here, fuzzy girl. Come on, fuzzy girl. Come on. Come here, baby. Oh, my goodness. Oh, it has been calm on spirit. Sorry, guys. I'm just kind of reading through these. Hollis. Yeah, it was a native girl who stumbled across them with a fire in a cave. She saw this as a child and ran. I hear of it from another Native American Bigfoot channel. Yep. And that would potentially be a good reason for using caves, actually, because when you go a couple hundred feet into a cave, you build a fire, the smoke will actually hang in the roof of the cave, and a lot of it, the particulate matter from, the soot of the fire, the smoke will actually stay in the roof of the cave. Less of the smoke will actually go out the entryway. So it actually hides the fact that you're using a fire to some degree. Better than if you were just, in the forest with a fire or in open grassland and you had a fire going. The smoke's just going to come up as a offshoot, and it's not going to have anything that's going to disrupt it from the fire. Wow, okay. Over 100. Wow. Yeah, that would be overwhelming. I mean, I think the most I've been surrounded by was 10. And that was enough to unnerve me pretty well. Awesome. I'm so glad that Steve's starting to do face-to-face interviews with people on his channel. That's really cool. I haven't looked at his channel in a couple of months. I've been kind of busy with other stuff, unfortunately. Some of those talks have been very insightful. I bet they have. Nice. I'm glad he's being a little selective. Who would believe I saw a 6-foot tall, 16-foot tall, hair covered, like that mind speaks. Okay, Beezer. That's a pretty honest statement, but most of the time, I think if they do show themselves to people, they have chosen them or know them to have decided to engage them. I hear a lot of that, and that might be possible. Yeah, Phil, you've had some really amazing stuff happen around you. I hope you've been journaling that stuff and doing something to document your encounters. Phil, here's a fun fact. They have been communicating via dream. Speak since I was very young. No, he lives up north in Canada. Well, and that's walking into your dreams. It's something that Native medicine people do too. So I wouldn't put it past Bigfoot to be able to do something like that. We also, medicine people, have a tendency to share each other's dreams. So we can actually decide to meet in a dream and have a discussion. And we'll pick we'll pick when we're going to do that with another medicine person, and we can do it. It's very interesting, but it's also a way of passing knowledge so that it's never spoken out loud. Keeps it completely secret. Yeah, it's like a movie directed by them, including me, and it's Technicolor. It seems very real. Yeah, very interesting. It's got to be very intense. I should keep a dream journal. Aren't already? Yeah, very true. I agree. Synthetic. So anyway, guys, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that sort of thing, and the fact that I think there's a lot of work to be done in the linguistics end of Bigfoot's communications, because I think that is probably more provable, and there's already a peer review potential with Petzinger's work. You know, her work with the Neanderthal iconography, their symbols, is very, very good, because that gives a correlation of imagery that's something that could be put in a peer-reviewed paper. In order to talk about a language, you usually have to reference another language, an offshoot of the language, or some variation, or at least a type of language that acts similarly, in order for it to be something that can be reviewed by a linguistics department. And having von Petzinger's work out there now, Petzinger's work, going after Neanderthal iconography and glyphs, language, and potential use of symbols, which is something that has not been done previously. Everybody's always focused on the cave art and the drawings, not the little kana kanji, or, symbols, petroglyphs, the linguistic parts of it. And the fact that they are so similar to Bigfoot is incredibly, incredibly suggestive to me. I'm going to have to keep up on her work, and that also means I got to go dig through my storage unit and start digging out my old books on proto-language and the beginnings of language and how language formed, so that I can give you guys a little better background on that sort of thing. I just ran across a couple of those books the other day, and I think I'm going to go back and pull them out, because the more I think about this language connection to Neanderthals, the more entertaining it's getting to me. It means there is a researchable avenue that really can't be argued with. And as long as you find the emblem on the ground and take a picture of it, and it's nothing that you've laid down, it also means that no modern human is running around doing that, because it's a proto-language. And it's in some cases, proto-Asiatic or other cultural language. So it's a mix. That's suggestive of an ancient communication form still being utilized on some part, and that there have been some modernization of the language as well. And I've always seen that split, the difference between the trail talk and then the kanji being put in with the trail talk. And it never really made a lot of sense to me, other than what my grandmother said. This was, meaning the original trail talk, this was the very first ways we ever wrote and communicated, and this is how we even communicated on walls. And then we used language, and we used writing in different ways that was on the ground or in symbol. And I think she was accurate with that. Besides, it's very, very much what science says anyway, that we went from proto-language to more modern languages. It stands to reason. If you're a proto-person, you're going to be using a proto-language. Maybe it has something to do with the organizational mind, the way we process information or think in that stage of evolution. That's the other thing. Evolution doesn't stop. And if something has perfected its evolution, it doesn't change. Shark. Shark has been, with the exception of one upgrade, meaning that uh, they came around 50,000 years before Pangea, so 350 million years ago. And they've had one upgrade. They went from having a jaw filled with sharp bone protrusions that acted like teeth to having teeth that fell out. So they could be regrown in another layer and pushed forward to the rim of the jaw. Other than that, sharks have remained the same for 350 million years. No need to upgrade. If we are going to put humans in that perspective, maybe Bigfoot is an archaic human and never had to upgrade. It never had to lose its hair. It never had to modernize. Maybe it was completely adapted to such a degree to its environment, it's never had to change. That's another thought possibility there, because there's evidence of other animals doing that. The shoebill stork, that's another one. It's a flippin' dinosaur for all intents and purposes. They were around during the time of dinosaurs. In fact, the shoebill, like the shark, survived all 5 of the mass extinct. Well, shoebill didn't. The shark did, but the shoebill survived at least one incredibly large mass extinction 66 million years ago, because the shoebill stork lived during the time of the dinosaurs and is still with us today. So those two creatures alone are an indication that other mammalian life forms could have survived in their original form. Maybe the reason why we don't have any evidence of them is because they make sure to cremate their dead. We don't know. Whatever they do with their dead, bury them, cremate them, put them in caves, drop them down ice ravines, and make sure there are no bones around to identify them. But at the same time, their language is here. There's evidence of them foraging, and they do act in a very tribal and very indigenous manner. That's food for thought in my book. Okay, let's go. Oh, hey, Cosmic. I'm glad you made it. Hey, Judy. Okay, you asked them a question, but they also show answers to you via life lessons. Oh, yeah. I've heard a lot of accounts like that, Phil. Okay, synthetic. Is it true that they have a covenant with God and that some are observant of Christians? That's an interesting question. Synthetic. If you would look up a particular saint, Saint Christopher, the patron saint of travelers, you'll find that he was a dogman. And that as he helped humans when he became a minister, a priest, because he did take up Christian faith, he was bought and converted by the Catholic Church and was beheaded in 1432 as a Crusader knight. He was known for carrying children and elderly across rivers and also fighting on behalf of the military to keep Christians safe. But he was a cryptid. And he was bought in the Persian slave market and had been sold 3 different times, and he had been captured in the Berber lands and was part of the Mamarike tribe, which is still known of by the Berber people today and by the Maasai people of Africa. They're still aware of the Marmariki dogmen, and they don't go into their territories because they believe they still live there. Yeah, they communicate faster than much more country data dump. Yeah, I've heard that too with some people. What do you mean by they erase info that they pass? Synthetic. Oh, that must be to fill. Yeah, okay, Cosmic, I believe so. I have also videos. Stick crosses made by them. Others around the country have also. Yeah, and there are markers here of crosses as well. And my native grandmother also claimed that some of them converted and became Christian because they felt that the ideology of not killing and not committing adultery and that sort of thing were morals that they agreed with because it's part of their moral structure as well. See, that's some of the stuff that some of the encounters that y'all have with these things I've never had. At least not in the context that you've experienced them. And some people claim that that's just because I don't accept certain things about them, but I lived around Jen for 7 years, 6 years, something like that. I'm very familiar with her behavior, and nothing in her behavior was suggestive of her even knowing what a spaceship was or a portal was. Nor did she invade my dreams when she was living on our property. She'd come look at my window at night to see if I was okay. That was about it. So a lot of this I don't have any a reference point for because it's not part of my experience with them. Come here, honey. Come here. Do you need help up? Do you want to go out? Do you need to go out? Do you need to go potty? Okay. All right. We will both walk outside, and I will take you for a potty walk. Sorry, guys. Gotta take the doggo out front. So I'm gonna put on some shoes, a coat, since it's chilly. It's gotten cold again tonight. I'm gonna shut down some of this extra lighting. I think I most of my point. So it looks like I'm gonna have to, if I can't get this channel back up, I'm gonna just maintain it as it is for a while. Switch phones, because if somebody has utilized the stolen phone to screw with my YouTube page, so I don't want to see what else they might do to it. Hopefully not, but you know I can't disregard that possibility since the phone's not in my possession anymore. I don't know who the hell has it. All right, Bubba, come on. I'll go out. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna go smoke a half a cigarette. And you can go potty. Come on. And I kind of took the night off tonight. I've been having problems with tendonitis in my arms and my shoulder. And it's spring break anyway. Come on, doggo. Come on. Come on, doggo, doggo. There you go. Typing. St. Christopher. Oh, you do know. Oh, good. I'm glad you know about St. Christopher. That's always been an interesting story. I know his history. He helped Christ across the river. Yeah, there's also that story. Very true. Cosmic. Uh, have you ever had mental telepathic messages from them where you know it's always strictly in your head? And they usually only mention one or two words or your name. It's odd. No, I've never had an experience like that. Yeah, the only thing I ever had like that was when I was living in a basement apartment. My adopted grandfather came to visit, and I'm pretty sure he bounced a sound wave, like infrasound in so that I could know that he was outside. But I'm pretty sure that was just vocal range. I don't think it had anything to do with mental telepathy. Because it sounded too much like ventriloquism to me. My uncle used to do ventriloquism, and it has a certain auditory sound to it. When you're next to the person, different than if you're in an audience and they are projecting towards you. You can hear the echo when you're standing next to them or sitting next to them, but when you're in front of them, you only hear the report of the echo. So you get the displaced voice instead of the person making the sound, and then the production of the sound, which you can hear next to them, is a little different. Ah, synthetic. Now, the part about him being sold and beheaded, I did not know. Yeah, you have to go to the Persian records or the Catholic purchase records of him, and then to get the information about where he was captured. Because he was actually captured in a particular Persian battle. And when you study up on the battle, you'll find that he was captured as part of like 200 people that survived the battle. And he was one of like 16 dogmen. He was just the one that actually made it to the church. The others were sold to different people in different places. So you can track him through the Persian slave market. You do have to track his name because each person that bought him and brought him back changed his name because the slavers didn't like the fact that he was being brought back, so they would change his name and call him the unfavored or the unruly. Rausch. So he's you have to track him through his description and his multiple changes. And then the church bought him. By the time they bought him, he was named Rausch, the unwanted. So they bought him to convert him. And he served for a time within the church. He, there are some hidden records within the church that are really, really hard to find. Because you have to know the exact freaking information of the document, and I don't know the title of the document. I've met one person who's read the document and who has seen it in the Vatican Library and is aware of it and told me some of the story of it. So there's some history of him being documented within the church, serving in the papacy, even as a minister for a very brief moment, although that information is not really publicly known. You can find his slave records and his purchase records, and then you can also find the rumors about him, the stories of him at the time, and how he was patron saint of travelers, and how he would help people that were elderly or disabled and make sure that they were not harmed when they crossed water, all that sort of thing. And then there is a final battle. And I can't remember. I think he was in the company of Knight Templars, if I remember right, or Crusaders, when he was captured and beheaded as a Christian in the Muslim land. So, he was originally captured by Muslims, enslaved by them, sold to the church, converted, lived for approximately 20 years within the church, then went back to the Holy Land as a crusader, was captured, and then beheaded. So he lived amongst humans about 20 or 22 years, roughly. So there's more history out there of him. There's more that could be found about him. Somebody really needs to dig into it because I think it would be fascinating to find more out about him. But that's a little bit that I've been able to find over the years. I also find it interesting that the year of his beheading, 1432, was the same year that the very first Bibles were printed on a printing press. I find that coincidental. Also, it's around, from that time period, from 1400s to 1580-ish, he's remained more or less dog-like, and they did represent him at one point in time as being dressed as a crusader in chainmail with a tabard with the red cross on it and wearing knight's shoes, belt, and carrying a sword, meaning a knight's belt, meaning he had a gold chain, spurs on his shoes, and he was wearing a white belt, meaning he had been knighted. And that record I have not found yet. But the imagery around him suggests, like the imagery around Joan of Arc, she had been knighted. So somewhere in his battles he had been knighted. I just don't know where. I haven't been able to find it, which also means he went on more than one crusade, potentially. There are frames of dogmen hung on the walls of the Vatican. I can believe that. He was considered, for lack of a better way of saying it, his conversion was considered a crown jewel in the mantle of the church for a while because he was of such a different species. Phil, I believe what we call Neanderthal, Cro-Magnon are our older siblings. Yeah, in some cases they are because they were able to crossbreed with us. But then there are stories that certain cryptids can do that too. Well, here's a funny thing, Phil. When you take a Neanderthal skull and you utilize modern forensic reconstruction, you end up with a Gugway face. So there's a potential that we might be misidentifying one of those two species, either the Gugway or the Neanderthal, or maybe we are identifying the same species in two different manners. from the skeletal record, from the fossil record, mind you, there is now some genetic evidence that suggests that Neanderthals may have gone into torpor during the winter, meaning they went into a hibernation-like sleep. Some researchers in the Bigfoot field also believe that some Bigfoot do that. If that is the case, that is a characteristic that is shared by both Bigfoot and Neanderthals, and that the facial reconstruction off of the skull is very suggestive. So I don't think there's so much as a hybrid as maybe we're just misidentifying what they are, potentially, at least some of them. I think modern language in that regard, in the Bigfooter field, does more to confuse than it does to clarify. Because as soon as you say hybrid, we think modern lab, and it was produced by cloning or gene splicing. That completely disregards the fact that they may have been historically here for millions of years. That's something I have a picky attitude about. But now you know why. Beezer. Have any of you documented their diet? I have been able to document part of their diet, Beezer, because of the individual that lived on our ranch with us. We had a Bigfoot female that showed up on our ranch when I was 5. She didn't leave our property until I was 9, 8.5. So during that time, she ate roots, flowers, berries, rodents, birds, small game. The biggest thing she caught off of our ranch during that entire time was a pheasant. She would catch one pheasant if she could, or a duck, each year for her birthday, and that was the only large meal she would take. And if there wasn't enough small game, she would go to the mink feed and she would take little finger pinches off of several pen tops to eat fresh fish, ground meat that we were feeding to our animals. So when she started doing that sort of thing, we would feed her an extra little bit and make sure that she was taken care of too. But everything I've noticed, that behavior of diet was consistent with my interactions during my turnout as a teenager, the Bigfoot that I was around there. In that time, they ate very similarly, though occasionally they take bigger game. Same for the ones I've tracked here on the West Coast, in Oregon and Washington, California. They all have a very omnivorous diet. It's very indigenous in its nature, with the exception of the rodents. That's very primate-like. But at the same time, it's a consistent diet. It's omnivorous. It's the same kinds of food sources that humans eat for the most part. There are a few things that they can eat that we can't eat, like iris bulbs. There's a family group in Washington that I found that liked to eat wild iris bulbs, but they'd collect the bulb and they would put it in a wash hole where it couldn't leave, like a water divot hole ground out in the rock. They would put the bulbs in that divot and let the river water wash over them for 24 hours to a couple of days before they come back to eat them. That was to remove any carcinogens out of the root. So it's a form of food prep. Now, gorillas can eat iris bulbs without needing to wash them or dilute the poison in them. So that would tell me that Bigfoot isn't exactly like a gorilla, because gorillas are not omnivorous. They are vegetarians. They are strictly vegetarians. They eat a few insects, but that's about it, and a few little grubs, worms, that sort of thing. But for the most part, they don't drink water, and they are plant eaters. So they would have a body system better to handle the carcinogens in a root like that and be able to digest it out. Whereas a human can't eat iris bulbs, it will poison us. And a Bigfoot has to wash them and has to soak them, which means they have to remove some of the tannins or whatever thing is in the root that's carcinogenic to them. So they're not completely impervious. But they also understand that they have to prepare that food differently. This is something my grandmother also witnessed when she was growing up around the family group of Yaren. They also ate iris bulbs that were wild, and they would wash them. So that's a consistent food type that's deadly to us, not deadly to primates. At least not modern ones. Yeah, my original phone that I started my YouTube page on, God, maybe 2 or 3 months after I started my page, I didn't even have 100 subscribers left yet, and my phone got stolen. The original phone that I started my YouTube channel with, this one is my secondary phone that I started using to uppost with because, well, it's what I had left. So if somebody has messed with my channel through that, it's unlikely I'll be able to fix it. And I don't know, like I said, YouTube added a button for me to like bypass the entry into my channel, and that didn't work. So I don't know. Maybe somebody got in and changed my password. I'm so glad that you came by, Synthetic. I appreciate you here. Awesome. You have a great day today. Hey, Judy. Why said, may I ask if you know Tracker Ella and Jerry William Choctaw out of Oklahoma? Yeah and no. The reason why I say no is because some Native Americans have modernized and they've completely Christianized and they have completely moved away from the original lore, and they don't, not an elder I'd talk to, put it that way. I've looked at the person's work. They seem to be far more interested in modern concepts than the reality of what these creatures are, and they have a misunderstanding of them. And I don't care if he's an elder. If he wants to tell me that something to my face, he can come find me. I'm not interested. Spider DNA. Well, yeah, there's a potential for ancient creatures to be multiple different kinds of things. We have no idea what was able to breed with other species, let alone what formed out of those species. Like, we're not even aware today that most of our mammals come from anthropoids, which are the Garganosaurus. Really ancient mammals that were ancient lizards that were mammals, and hairy and not hairy and feathered, and birds, and every other thing comes from them in one form or another, including dinosaurs in some cases. And we never even talk about them or even think about them. But they are a huge chunk of our past history, and potentially even our present history. Because some of the out there might just be surviving anthropoids that we haven't gotten documentation of yet. That thing up in the Nahanni Valley is very suggestive of that as a garganosaur. A prehistoric anthropoid that didn't die out. Sorry, I had to turn the lights off. Come on, Taco. Yeah, come on. Yeah, I'm not a person that looks at this from a perspective of religious superstition or myth in any way. To me, from the stories that I was taught, the things that I was exposed to, everything suggests to me that they are far more like an ancient humanoid of some sort that we don't have a record of. Or if we do, we don't understand the record. It's misidentification in some way. Maybe like the potential of a Neanderthal and a Gugway being the same thing. So, with that regard, I don't indulge certain things, and I'm going to become less indulgent of those. The whole their spaceship thing, no, I'm not going to indulge that idea anymore. The whole walking out of portals, I'm not going to indulge that either, and don't tell me that I just don't know, because I lived around one for 4 fucking years. I'm pretty sure if she was traveling in a spaceship or walking through portals in the 24/7 contact that I had with her for 4 fucking years, I would have noticed. So, no, I'm not going to entertain that anymore at any level. And trying to put my understanding of these cryptids on that is trying to tell me that I'm full of superstition and bedtime stories. No, thank you, bye, pass. No, not interested. Because it's too superstitious. It's not scientific enough for me. It just isn't. And it doesn't preserve anything. It's more like just another pea soup of what some alphabet organization wants to sell you. Yeah, I know. You may like the man, you may think he's worth something, but I've looked at Choctaw's work and I've listened to his shows, and I'm Christian, he's too Christian for me and his concepts about these things. He can't put science away from his superstition versus his religion. I'm Christian. I'm also Native American in my concepts of religion, so I'm accepting of both factors. And I don't pit one against the other. He does that all the time. It means he's not grounded in his own belief system. I'm not going to get into personals. I just don't agree with him. Yeah. What you want? You want some jerky? Oh, you're licking your lips like you want jerky. Alright, it's been 2 hours. I'm going to go through and answer any last little questions, and I think I need to pay some attention to the doggo. She's starting to get a little angst with me not paying attention to her. Yeah, I've noticed that words become translated when I hear them and come to my ear in English. It's English. That is one of the characteristics that researchers interested in telepathy did notice during the 60s. Because, during the Cold War, the American government and the Russians went through this era for a few years where they were who had the best psyop individual who could talk telepathically or hit you from a distance or blah blah blah. And there were a few discoveries made around that time. And one of them was that it didn't matter what language you were projecting in, the receiver would hear it in their language. They would understand it in their language. A person might be speaking Russian when they're sending the thought, but the person receiving it could receive it in Filipino or whatever language they spoke. So that is potentially something relevant to telepathy and scientifically hasn't been sorted out yet. Okay. Okay, Phil, when I say hybrid, I mean that there are some saucers going in. Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you for clarifying. And yeah, I agree. That is a good possibility. I mean, there's a lot of old stories about that sort of thing. In fact, that's something I might do is I might go grab old newspaper articles of the pioneer days and see what kind of encounter stories from the West Coast that I can find, put up for you guys or talk about. Because there are some very peculiar things that have happened here on the West Coast with Bigfoot and people. Yeah, no worries. Phil, the thing that cryptids, monkeys, humans, gorillas have in common, cannibalism. Yeah, that is unfortunately the one thing we all have in common. And that's also where I think that that's sometimes a cultural thing when it comes to some of these cryptids. Like one of the research areas I went into, I could walk around in that area all goddamn day long. Even though I knew the group were cannibals, I was okay as long as it was daytime. As soon as night hit, though, you became a hunted target. If you went in that area at night, you likely wouldn't come out. And the one time that I did go into it at night, I went with a buddy because he wanted to show me where they would attack you from and how they would attack because he'd had a friend that had been drug off. Cops wouldn't do anything about it. They just filed a missing person report and said, "You're never going to see your friend again." Uh, so he showed me where his friend had disappeared the night he'd been drug off into the wilds by a fucking Bigfoot. And yeah, we damn near got drug off ourselves that night. But the group that I had been, and it was in the group I had been researching, it was in the group that had been very friendly to me, and even one of the juveniles sat down next to me. It was the group I traded teeth with, for baby teeth, but it was a completely different story at night. I was no longer a friend, I was dinner, and I knew the difference. At night, that was a completely different area. Could not trust them. Youch! Gosh, Phil, that sounds like somebody messed with your channel. Yeah, that for sure. Okay, I just wanted to learn our real history. Really, far more interesting stuff than most governments or even researchers are willing to. Partly because they don't have enough answers yet to give all the answers, so they probably don't want to bring it up without sounding like an expert. So that might be a few years before researchers catch up to that kind of concept, if they ever bother to. Phil, Bigfoot has told me that they are created by God to serve God. Yeah, well, we all are. Yeah, they told me, yeah, they told me something similar. In that Eve was the mother of all on our planet, and they call God the Great Spirit. If you go look at Leonardo da Vinci's representation of the Mount, There are a pair of Bigfoot painted in the cave below the mount. In fact, somewhere I think there was a painting that Leonardo did, or another artist, I think it was Leonardo, where he painted Adam and Eve as a Bigfoot couple. Makes me wonder what he was told by the troglodytes that he lived with. Because that's another thing, a lot of people don't realize that Leonardo da Vinci lived for a time in a cave system with a bunch of cryptids. And he drew pictures of them. And he added them to his artwork. So what was the history that he was told by them? Okay, Cosmic, there's so much content to catch up on right now. Lately I've been away from YouTube due to work. Tons of notifications I have to catch up on. Oh, I bet. Or the great source. Yes, Beezer. Well, and, even scientifically, if you look at the physical world, it's permeated with energy. Yeah, like everything, whether you call it a soul or not, it has energy. With the fact that everything has energy, it's scientifically provable that it doesn't ever end. Energy doesn't end. It changes form, it changes shape, it changes position, yada yada, but it doesn't degrade. It just keeps going. That's the one thing science teaches us. Now, if the Big Bang also is an energetic thing, which is part of the theory, then it would stand to reason that something binds us all together, and it's likely that energy. Because sound waves are energy. Listening auditorily, you have to get a bounce of a sound wave to be able to hear a word, for instance. And so it makes sense that communication, voice, that some level of consciousness is shared throughout energy. I gotcha. Yeah, my battery's starting to conk out, so I'm probably gonna have to get off here soon. Mystery Pip is intriguing at times. Recently came across some scat that was oddly placed on my route patrol, as if the Bigfoot in the area are messing with me, but I intend to show them my boss. Nice. Okay, Phil, question. Open to all. What do you think about what I posted here? Please be honest. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you've had some really intense interactions over the years, Phil, and I think that you've had consistent interactions with something around you. And because I'm not up there, I don't know which types of critters you're around, but you've got consistent stories about this stuff. And you're able to recognize some of the cryptids that I've taken pictures of. So I know you're actually seeing these flippin' things up there around you. So I don't doubt you. I just don't have your experiences. I don't doubt you. I can't. I'm not you. I don't know your life. I haven't walked in your shoes. And it would be disrespectful of me to doubt anybody at their word. Well, then and there fart jokes, Just remember, dogmen eat a lot of eggs. And their fart joke is to sneak up on you at night and let one rip so you smell sulfur. Be careful of them. Alright, guys. My doggo's really buggered me. I need to get going. Thank you for coming and hanging out with me a little bit tonight. I'll try to do a show on Sunday. Like I said, I'm just going to switch over to doing more linguistic stuff. Because I keep finding a lot of trail talk up on the hillside behind me. There's plenty of language find potential up there. And just 3/4 of a mile up the roads where I've gotten all of the language that's been, well, for the most part, except for the dogmen. One of those guys was willing to speak as well out loud. So all of the linguistics, interactions I've had verbally where I can record what they're saying has been just 3/4 of a mile away from me. So I might as well utilize that, focus on the language. It's an avenue that nobody else is focusing on. And bring some light to the topic. It might help people understand what's on the ground in front of them. Hopefully. Anyway, everybody, I appreciate you all. Thank you guys, and we'll see if I can ever get this channel up off the ground again. If not, I'll just do another one. We'll go on. Take care, everyone. Thank you for being here.